Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my journey as I go through my favorites list on fanfiction.net. Uh, I'm I've been reading a lot, so let's dive into more fics from 2011, and let's start with NPU Welcome to the Sea of Monsters by Flames of Azure. NPU being Naruto Prince of the Underworld, because this is a sequel to I believe the first one was just called Naruto Prince of the Underworld, um, which is a Naruto Percy Jackson crossover. And this is a sequel to a story that I had already kicked off my list. um, so the first one, the main problems I had were basically that it was basically just the first Percy Jackson fic with basically no changes to canon, even though they add a new character in form of Naruto, who's the son of Hades, which should throw a whole bunch of different wrenches into the works, but basically nothing changed. Here, there's a slight improvement in this one because there are a few bigger changes with things like Orochimaru being Echidna's son and coming in and bringing the ninja world into the Naruto world for a bit. I haven't read this book, Sea of Monsters, and so I don't know how much of this is pure canon and how much is a bit newer. I can't tell if it's a complete retread, but I still just was completely bored as I read this. Like the fight scenes are not very impressive, or they're very short, lack detail, and Naruto, especially in the beginning, just constantly breaks into song, which just pads the thing. And also, is why is he doing that? Like literally, one time he's just going to breakfast, and then all of a sudden he breaks into a song. It's like, why? What the hell was the point of that? Um, there's also just an overall lack of detail or description to most stuff, and I just couldn't find myself paying attention to the story, and I kept just drifting away for something more interesting to look at. This is not going to stay on my list, and most likely the other two sequels to this aren't going to stay on my list either. Next is A Seemingly Simple Game by Sarah1281. And this is a Harry Potter story that's basically a fun pair of skits where Harry and Hermione play and explain board games to Ron and Ginny. It quickly devolves into a series of arguments about how corrupt and evil the other players are, which, as anybody who has played board games with people can tell you, is 100% accurate, especially if you're talking about Monopoly. Like, it's basically just a small, harmless bit of funny that I found to be really enjoyable, and it's gonna stay on my list. If you want a quick laugh at board game humor and stuff like that, give it a look. Uh, Number three is Under Review by Halbarad, and this is a Haruhi Suzumiya fic that takes place at the end of their first year of school, where told from Haruhi's perspective, which that's different. Usually, all Haruhi fics that I read are from Kyon's perspective, so that already makes it stick out. But this is basically Haruhi at the end of the year decides to do a little review about how everybody she feels about all the people in her brigade. And it's a great character piece that delves into Haruhi's mentality as she comes to grips with her feelings for Kyon and honestly a bunch of the other members of the brigade, and as well as how she's acted towards them. I just enjoyed it a lot, even though it's pretty mellow and slow paced. But I think I found this to be a really nice dive into Haruhi, and it's gonna stay on my list. Going back to the Harry Potter well, we have I'm Gonna Die Anyway by Flight of Fantasy. And this is just a bit that starts literally right as Harry walks to his death at near the end of the seventh book, and he decides, well, if I'm gonna die, might as well do whatever the hell I wanted and just say some bunch of childish insults at Voldemort and Bellatrix, while also throwing a few jokes of Hannah Montana and Justin Bieber into the mix. It is what it is. I might have chuckled a little, but this is not something I would ever come back to, and I really don't think anybody needs to see this. It's really just the dumb style of humor that was, I think, kind of too dumb even for me, and it's gonna fall off my list. Uh, we'll continue with more Harry Potter with Escalation by Bobman356. And this is a really short story where Harry learns about who really holds the power to help him get out of the Dursleys, the IRS. uh, and then he just opens up a ticket, and that leads to Dumbledore trying to fix things and causing a whole lot of problems because of his focus on Harry and not all the other positions he holds. It's short, simple, funny, and the story goes through its titular escalation of a minor incident into a massive change really well, and I just found this to be a great laugh. Really, if you want a little dose of funny injected really quickly, give this a look, and it's going to stay on my list. Alright. Next is The Paranormal Case by Prophet of Greed. And this is a Danny Phantom crossover with House MD, being House MD the show, which was about like medical mysteries and stuff. And this is basically what I imagine a House episode would be if they had to bring in Danny Phantom as a crossover for some reason, but we're not allowed to really go into or explain what Danny Phantom was. And I found it to be really, really interesting. You know, it goes by pretty quick. If we were so the way because this episode is very much structured as a House episode. I'm just gonna talk about it like that, and it's structured more as a House episode that's like basically not much character drama happening here. It's just about the patient, because like we don't get any info on who Danny is at the beginning and stuff, and it just goes through like standard, you know, oh, here's the medical thing, here's this kid, he has problems, let's try this, did it work, no, let's try something else, did it work, no, and then near the end where we're about to see something, we get a flashback into his thing about why it's actually happening and stuff. And then at the end is where the Danny Phantom bits at the very end is where the Danny Phantom bit really comes in, and then, you know, just how else are they going to end it except returning kind of to a status quo, and then they leave, it ends. I just found it to be really rather good, even though it's pretty sparse on actual character introspection. The small character moments that are there are good enough, and like I said, it's more just a quick in and out like mystery in the medical sense. So it's more in the sense of like this is a good, interesting House episode rather than a deep or super like weird Danny Phantom bit or stuff like that. I just found it to be really fun as a goofier House episode. If you like House, this is more of a if you like House rather than Danny Phantom story. But I did enjoy this a lot, and it's gonna stay on my list. And so the last one for this video is Again and Again and Again by the Queen of Scouts. And this is a Naruto time travel fic, which is a bit of basically super randomness. It's a time travel fic in the sense of the inortal time loops, and what we're watching is basically Team 7 and later Kakashi as well and somebody else eventually like coming back, and this is basically we're watching one of their loops after they've been looping for an undisclosed amount of time, but enough for them to decide to stop giving a shit and just go crazy with it. There's tons of actions that are initially random, but constantly build off each other to actually keep a consistency, which is actually how random humor is actually done. That's how you do it well, by keeping some consistency. And there's a bunch of gags that I found quite funny. It isn't complete, but again, this is short enough that if you want just some random humor that actually stays coherent, give this a look. I really did enjoy it, and it's going to stay on my list. And that's it for this video. So story-wise, we've read 595 stories, and I've kept 298 on my list. So boom, back over 50%. Just barely, but we're there. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, links are in the description down below. If you want to get notified when these videos come out, please subscribe or leave a like if you like what I'm doing or doing this. I'm still going to be doing this probably for another 2 years or so. Jeez. But thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.